Discipline is not a virtue, it is a weapon, a blade sharpened against the soft flesh of human weakness. Most people believe discipline is about waking early, working hard, or controlling habits. They misunderstand its nature. Discipline, in its true form, is the slow removal of everything that makes you predictable, fragile, or easily defeated. It is the deliberate shaping of yourself into something that does not bend to emotion, convenience, or the chaotic demands of others. The world will call you obsessed, cold, or crazy not because you are these things, but because you live by a logic they cannot comprehend. People fear what they cannot imitate, and nothing is more intimidating than a person who governs themselves with the precision of a machine and the calm of a ruler. Discipline begins where the moment you walk away from the softness that traps the masses, you step into a realm reserved only for the few, the ones who use discipline like armor, strategy like silent warfare. The first law: master your instincts before they master you. Human impulses are ancient, wild, and blind. They push people to speak too soon, eat too much, react too quickly, love too easily, fear too intensely. The undisciplined are ruled entirely by these impulses and therefore live as prisoners inside their own skull. To become disciplined, you must commit an act of internal violence. You must sever the connection between impulse and action. Observe your instincts as if they belong to an enemy. Feel desire rise and do nothing. Feel anger ignite and feel fear whisper and move forward. Every moment you resist the primitive, you evolve into something the average person cannot even imagine. The second law: routine is the throne of power. People crave freedom, yet waste their lives drowning in the chaos that freedom creates. Those who rely on motivation collapse at the first sign of difficulty. But those who build strict personal routines ascend without effort. Routine is not confinement. It frees you from disorder, distraction, and weakness. It builds a structure that carries you when your emotions try to sabotage you. When your days are predictable, your results become inevitable. You eat at the same time, work at the same time, train at the same time, and rest at the same time. Eventually, discipline, and when something becomes automatic, it becomes unstoppable. The third law: distance yourself from the undisciplined. Weakness is contagious. Laziness is infectious. Mediocrity spreads like smoke filling a room. To become disciplined, you must distance yourself from those who live without purpose. Their habits will become your habits. Their excuses will become your excuses. Their softness will slowly erode your edge. Machiavelli understood this. A ruler who surrounds himself with the undisciplined will eventually become indistinguishable from them. Seek solitude if you must. Seek isolation if it is necessary. Better to be alone with your discipline than surrounded by people who live without any. The fourth law: make your desires fear you. Most people are owned by their cravings. They chase pleasures the way slaves chase their masters. But the disciplined man reverses this relationship. He commands his desires the way a general commands soldiers. If you want something, delay it. If you crave something, restrict it. If you enjoy something, limit it. Not destroy pleasure. You conquer it. This creates a silent power that others can feel. They see someone who is not driven by hunger, but by strategy. Someone who walks toward their goals without negotiating with temptation. Such a person is frightening. Such a person is rare. The fifth law: stay invisible until your work speaks. The loudest individuals are always the weakest. They scream their goals because they lack the discipline to execute them. But the disciplined man works in silence. He builds in secrecy. He advances quietly while others are busy announcing progress they will never achieve. You must disappear from places that drain your discipline. The gossip circles, the pointless arguments, the digital noise of constant distraction. You must operate below the surface, where the world cannot interfere. Then, one day, without warning, you will emerge with results so undeniable that people will claim you rose overnight. They will call it luck or obsession. They will never call it discipline because they have never seen discipline long enough to recognize it. The sixth law, discipline requires sacrifice. Accept it calmly. Form of power demands a price. The price of discipline is you must give up comfort. You must give up distraction. You must give up the validation of others. And sometimes you must give up people, not because they are evil, but because they are incompatible with who you are becoming. You are crafting a life ruled by intention. They live in a world ruled by impulse. Your paths cannot intertwine for long. Becoming disciplined will cost you the world you know, but it will grant you a world the undisciplined can never enter. The seventh law, consistency is more powerful than talent. Talent sparks quickly, but consistency is the slow-burning fire that consumes mountains. The disciplined understand this. 1 hour of focused work every day is more powerful than 10 hours of chaotic effort once a week. 10 pages a day becomes an entire library. 1 workout a day becomes a warrior's body. 1 hour of learning a day becomes a master's mind. Consistency compounds, and what compounds becomes. That is why the disciplined never chase miracles. They cultivate they generate results through the relentless repetition of small but meaningful actions. The eighth law, let silence become your sharpest tool. Speech is cheap. Silence is People fear silence because it forces them to confront themselves. The disciplined embrace silence because it sharpens the mind, strengthens the will, and deepens focus. When you learn to think without distraction, your thoughts become weapons. When you learn to act without seeking applause, your actions become pure. When you learn to endure without complaining, your resilience becomes legendary. Silence turns chaos. Clarity turns potential. The ninth law, master your time or become a slave to everyone else's. Time is the rarest form of power. Those who master it rise. Those who waste it vanish. The disciplined guard their hours the way a king guards his throne. They prioritize ruthless. They eliminate obligations that do not align with their mission. They say no with an ice-cold calm that others interpret as arrogance. In truth, it is not arrogance, it is self-respect. When you control your time, you control your life. When you control your life, nothing controls you. The 10th law, discipline makes you dangerous. The undisciplined are predictable. They break under pressure. They retreat in fear. They collapse when life tightens its grip. But the disciplined operate on a different frequency. They endure storms without. They execute plans without. They rise before the world waits. They strike when opportunities. People call them crazy because discipline looks insane to the undisciplined. They cannot understand a person who no longer bows to emotion, comfort, or opinion. They mistake strength for madness. They mistake focus for. They mistake self-mastery for. Let them. Their confusion is proof of your. The 11th law, discipline transforms you into someone the world cannot ignore. You are not becoming disciplined. You are becoming disciplined to make your existence undeniable. When your actions align with your ambition, when your habits reflect and outpaces your excuses, you become a force the world must acknowledge. You rise above the masses not through luck, but through relentless self-governance. You walk with a calm intensity that others instinctively step aside for. You move with purpose that cannot be shaken or manipulated. And one day, they will whisper behind your back, "He's insane. No one is that disciplined." But in their fear, in their awe, in their confusion, they will reveal a truth they can never admit. You have become everything they secretly wished they could be. That is the power of cold discipline. That is the power Machiavelli understood. That is the power that bends the world quietly, relentlessly, and permanently. Part 12. The architecture of cold discipline. Become so disciplined people call you crazy. Machiavelli's Cold Discipline. Discipline is not a habit you build. It is a ritual of self-dismantling. A deliberate destruction of the weaker version of yourself so a stronger one can rise in its place. Those who chase motivation seek comfort. Those who chase discipline seek transformation. But those who forge cold discipline, the kind that looks insane to ordinary people, become unrecognizable even to themselves. Most individuals fail not because they lack opportunity, but because they refuse to embrace the violence required to command themselves. They negotiate with their inner, they bargain with their weakness, they justify their distraction. But balance is a luxury of the already powerful. For the unproven, only obsession has currency. The world admires discipline from a distance but recoils when they witness its true nature. They praise consistency until they see how much it requires you to withdraw from them. They praise focus until they realize it excludes them. They praise ambition until they understand its appetite devours everything that stands between you and your goal, including them. To be disciplined at a legendary level is to declare war on the person you were yesterday, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but with the same cold efficiency a ruler uses when removing a disloyal advisor. You eliminate distractions, routines, people, and behaviors that have grown comfortable inside your mind like parasites. You sever them without apology, without mourning. Cold discipline demands this. You must betray your former self. The undisciplined man clings to comfort the way a drowning sailor clings to driftwood. He convinces himself that the problem is external, his surroundings, his family, his past. The system, never realizing the true enemy, whispers from inside his own skull. The disciplined man knows that the battlefield is internal. He builds structure the way an emperor builds walls, high enough to keep chaos out, thick enough to withstand temp, and unbreakable enough to endure the storms of fatigue and doubt. People call him obsessed. People call him extreme. People call him crazy. And in a way he is. Because sanity, in the realm of ordinary people, is simply another word for stagnation. They fear going too far, so they never go anywhere at all. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is a fortress. It is an operating system. It is a quiet, ruthless contract with yourself that you will not break, no matter who tries to tempt you back into mediocrity. Observe how power behaves across history. The great conquerors were not the strongest, nor the smartest, nor the most charismatic. They were the most disciplined in the hours no one saw. Julius Caesar did not rise because he was brilliant. He rose because he prepared while enemies slept. Miyamoto Musashi did not become a legend because he was gifted. He became one because he practiced until the sword became an extension of his will. Leonardo da Vinci did not master a dozen disciplines through talent. He did it through relentless repetition and self-imposed exile from distraction. These men understood that discipline is the only altar where greatness can be summoned. Every achievement mankind admires is built on a foundation of countless invisible hours. But cold discipline is dead. It has no warmth, no emotion, no celebration. It allows no reward except the work itself. You rise early not because it feels good, but because you promised yourself you would. You train not because you enjoy it, but because your body is a soldier and your mind is its commander. You study not because it excites you, but because ignorance is a vulnerability you refuse to permit. Cold discipline it transforms your routines into rituals, your habits into laws. It creates a private world where mediocrity cannot breathe. Ordinary discipline is fueled. Cold discipline is fueled by goals can be abandoned when they become inconvenient. Duty cannot. The disciplined man becomes a creature of his own design. His environment no longer, his emotions no longer dictate, his comfort no longer. He becomes predictable only to himself, unstoppable to others. People do not call him insane because he works hard. They call him insane because he refuses to collapse. They call him insane because he keeps going long after excitement dies, after fatigue arrives, after doubt poisons the air. They call him insane because he chose a path so narrow only one version of himself can fit through, the strongest version. Understand this, the more disciplined you become, the smaller your world becomes. And the smaller your world becomes, the more powerful you grow within it, because you have eliminated everything that dilutes your will. Cold discipline turns your life into a sharpened point rather than a scattered field, a spear not sand, laser not a lantern. It is better to be feared by your own weaknesses than to be admired by the world for your potential. Part 13th. The rituals of ruthless self-control. Become so disciplined people call you crazy. Machiavelli's Cold Discipline. Cold discipline is not sustained. It survives through ritual, through the construction of behaviors so embedded, so non-negotiable, that breaking them feels like treason against yourself. A man without rituals becomes a creature of mood. A man with rituals becomes a creature of inevitability. The world belongs to those who operate by law. Laws they write for themselves, enforce on themselves, and refuse to compromise even under the threat of exhaustion, loneliness, or temptation. These rituals are not. They do not glitter with the seduction of modern self-help. They are brutal, predictable, repetitive, and dull. And yet they generate a level of power that terrifies the undisciplined. Every morning ritual is an act of rebellion against your weaker nature. When you rise before the world wakes, you demonstrate that your urges are not your masters. When you train before your mind complains, you display that your body no longer negotiates with excuses. When you begin your work before distractions hunt you, you show that you have already built walls they cannot breach. Discipline grows in the hours when no one is watching, because there is no audience to impress and no applause to expect. It flourishes in silence, where your mind becomes both your judge and executioner. Great empires were not built by inspiration. They were forged by men who repeated the same tasks relentlessly, long after passion had withered and long before reward appeared. Kublai Khan did not conquer continents with dreams. He conquered with routine. Sparta did not shape warriors with motivation. They shaped them with not ritualistic cruelty that hardened the mind as much as the blade. Florentine statesmen did not rise with genius alone. They rose with daily study, daily planning, daily political surveillance. The modern man seeks short. He wants results without rituals, power without pain, progress without consistency. He wants glory while avoiding the grind that creates it. He wants the image of discipline, not the machinery behind it. But true discipline has no. It is not beautiful, not inspirational. It is a daily confrontation with discomfort, with boredom, with repetition. And yet within that monotony lies the architecture of greatness. When discipline becomes ritual, the mind no longer debates, the body no longer asks. Action becomes automatic, unquestioned, unresisted. This is the point where people call you crazy. Not because you work harder than them, but because you operate differently from them. You move with a precision that feels unnatural to the chaotic. You pursue improvement with a focus that suffocates the weak-willed. You walk away from distractions they are addicted to, and they interpret your independence as insanity. But they do not understand the truth. To transcend average behavior, you must first transcend average thinking. And average thinking is cold discipline trains your mind to obey you, not the world. And when the world cannot control you, it begins to fear you. People fear what they can, and nothing is harder to predict than a man who refuses to be influenced by emotion, environment, or temptation. Rituals transform your life into a narrow corridor of progress where every step is deliberate and every choice is intentional. You stop wandering, you stop drifting, you stop letting external forces rearrange your priorities, become self-directed, self-forged, and eventually something strange. The habits that felt impossible, the tasks that once felt heavy become light, the routines that once felt restrictive become liberating. Because the mind adapts to discipline the same way a sword adapts to flame, it becomes sharper through repeated exposure. Understand this. The purpose of ritual is not to make life efficient. Its purpose is to make you Efficiency is a side effect. Power is the reward. Cold discipline eliminates the chaos that weakens ordinary men. It extracts the poison of distraction from your veins. It burns away the softness that prevents ambition from hardening into achievement. People who call you crazy are revealing their limits, not yours. They cannot imagine living with such structure because it would expose their own lack of control. They cannot imagine rejecting comfort because they have built their identity around craving it. They cannot imagine ordering themselves because they have spent their lives being ordered by impulses. Let them speak. Let them mock. Them misunderstand. None of it matters, because the man with cold discipline communicates his truth through outcomes, not explanations. In a world of men who chase stimulation, the disciplined man becomes a fortress. In a world ruled by algorithms, the disciplined man becomes unpredictable. In a world full of addiction, the disciplined man becomes sovereign. But discipline alone is not enough. Its sharpness must be preserved, its direction must be sculpted, and its energy must be weaponized. To reach the highest form of power, you must not only practice discipline, you must become discipline. The final mutation: become a machine of relentless self-mastery. Become so disciplined people call you crazy. Machiavelli's Cold Discipline. The highest form of discipline is not measured in hours, routines, or repeated actions. It is measured in total sovereignty over yourself. It is the point where habit, ritual, and ritualized thought fuse into a machine that never rests, never complains, and never questions its purpose. Here, human weakness ceases to exist. Here, desire, fear, and distraction are reduced to inert noise. Here, the disciplined man becomes a mechanism, a calculated force that moves only with intention and precision. This is the mutation that terrifies the uninitiated. People see your constancy and call it obsession. They see your calm in chaos and call it madness. They see your refusal to surrender to comfort and call it inhuman. They do not understand that this transformation is not born of impulse. It is born of the same logic that guides generals, kings, and strategists who survive wars, betrayals, and the collapse of empires. If weakness is allowed to linger, it will destroy you. If chaos is permitted to linger, it will consume you. If desire is allowed to dictate, it will enslave you. Cold discipline is the antidote to all three, the law of ruthless prioritization. At this stage, every action, every thought, every relationship, every hour must serve one purpose: your transformation into a force the world cannot ignore. Anything else is wasted energy. Everything that does not strengthen, sharpen, or extend your power must be eliminated. People cling to loyalty, sentiment, or comfort. You cling only to. You measure every decision not by how it feels, but by how it aligns with your trajectory toward mastery. This is the point where others will look at your life and call it insane. They will see sacrifices they refuse to make. They will see obsession they dare not embrace. They will see a single-minded pursuit that defies social convention. And yet, it is the only path to true self-sovereignty. The disciplined man no longer debates. He asserts it silently. He does not need to speak to be heard. He does not need to perform to be recognized. His presence alone communicates capability, control, and inevitability. Those around him are constantly aware of his rhythms, his habits, his unshakable consistency. Even without interaction, he shapes their perception, subtly directing outcomes and creating influence through inaction as much as action. This is power beyond noise. This is authority. Discipline weaponized into domination. The law of immutable will. Cold discipline demands that you accept the inviolability of your own will. You do not compromise with, not negotiate with. You do not seek validation from the chaotic world. Your body becomes your servant. Your mind becomes your general. Your emotions become instruments rather than tyrants. Every choice is executed as if it were law, not option. At this stage, the world becomes predictable, not because the world has changed, but because your response to it has. The law of strategic: the higher you rise in discipline, the fewer companions you can tolerate. Thought. Most people cannot endure your routines, your focus, or your silence. They cannot match your intensity, your precision, or your refusal to be swayed. Isolation is not loneliness. It is armor. It prevents contamination from distraction, weakness, and doubt. It allows you to operate at a level the uninitiated cannot comprehend. Every great leader, warrior, and strategist in history has understood this. Powerful minds require solitude to maintain clarity. Unbroken focus cannot coexist with chaos. Discipline cannot survive in a hive of indulgence. The law of relentless iteration. Cold discipline is not static. It is a constant process of breaking and rebuilding oneself. Every weakness discovered, every distraction identified becomes a barrier to eliminate. Failure encountered, you refine, you sharpen, you harden, until every action, every thought, every habit, every moment serves a singular purpose: perfection of the self. The law of fearless confrontation. At the apex of cold discipline, you cease to fear discomfort. You cease to fear criticism. You cease to fear the collapse of others' opinions. You confront the harshest truths of your life and face them without hesitation. Others crumble under it. They plead for comfort. They search for excuse. They measure themselves against the weak and call it survival. You measure yourself against. You accept it. You master it. You bend it to your design. The law of invisible. At this stage, your discipline creates influence without need for display. Your presence alone, your actions alone the world unconsciously aligns itself with your rigor. No announcement is needed. No explanation is. Those around you instinctively obey the rhythm you set. They follow not because they respect you, but because your discipline leaves them no alternative. The law of eternal edge. True cold discipline ensures that you never stop evolving. You do not grow complacent. You do not rest on pride. You do not measure yourself against others, but against the highest version of yourself. The world changes. Chaos persists. The weak falter. But your edge, honed daily, becomes sharper with every test, every trial, every sacrifice. The inevitable result: people call you crazy. At the final stage, your life appears unrecognizable. You wake before dawn. You work when others sleep. You endure when others flee. You pursue mastery with an intensity the average mind cannot comprehend. People will label you crazy because they are trapped in mediocrity. They are afraid of your they are afraid of your clarity. They are afraid of the invisible power you wield over yourself. Let them speak, misinterpret. Let them fear. Your life is no longer for them. It is for the version of yourself that cannot be restrained, cannot be bribed, and cannot be broken. Conclusion: the cold discipline is not a lifestyle choice. It is a declaration of sovereignty. It is the creation of a self that no impulse can dictate, no distraction can derail, no weakness can corrupt. It is a life lived on the cutting edge of human capability. Those who follow this path will be called insane. They will be envied. They will be feared. They will stand alone at times, misunderstood but unstoppable. And in that solitude, in that relentless order, lies the ultimate truth. The world bends to those who govern themselves before they attempt to govern it. The world obeys the one who has mastered the chaos within. The world cannot resist the one who has become a machine of cold, unyielding discipline. This is the Machiavellian path. This is the crucible of the extraordinary. This is a discipline that turns the ordinary into legend.